Hello! I just got sent a huge box of canvases from a company called Phoenix. They sent these to me for free to try out, so let's open it up and check out what's inside. It's so big I can't even put my camera in the filming gizmo because it's just not going to zoom out enough. So I've already sliced open the tape, and as you can see, it is full of bubble wrap. So they have wrapped these really well. And here we go. Alright. Ooh. Are those heart-shaped ones? I love getting free things. So Phoenix sent me these to review. They're not sponsoring me, so all of the opinions in this are my own, and they just wanted to get their name out, I guess, a little bit more. I'm going to link them down in the description below. I think they're only available from Amazon US. I'm not sure if they're available in other countries yet. I do need to check that out. So I'll link down below all of the places where you can find their things. And they do other supplies as well, like watercolor paints, I think acrylic paints and things like that, but I already have a lot of paints, so I was more interested in trying out some of their canvases. Alright, let's get into it. Now I have a full box of bubble wrap. I'm not going to need any of that anytime soon. So I've got a range of canvases here. I think I might go through them individually just to make it a little easier. But as you can see, I've got some really interesting looking ones over here. Firstly are some heart-shaped canvases, which look so cute, and I just love how they nest inside each other. That is really cool. So I'm just going to cut these out so we can actually see them a little bit better. Okay, so they are actually all individually wrapped. It's just that one is wrapped inside another, just like nesting dolls. So let me see if I can at least open the outside one. I might leave these two in here. We'll look at the big one because this one's unwrapped. So it looks like it's on a fairly reasonable canvas. This one is a standard canvas that you would get for painting with acrylics and oil paints. It's been very well stapled on there, and it feels pretty tight, like there's not a lot of give when I'm touching that, which I like because I've used really cheap canvases where you touch them and they just, they're not stretched enough, and I really hate that. So these ones seem like they're pretty sturdily put on there, and that is covered in a layer of gesso. I usually prefer to have pre-gessoed canvases. It appeals to the lazy side in me. So we've got that size, a middle size one, and a baby heart as well. Oh, go on, let's pull them all out. Yes, and as I suspected, all individually wrapped. Now this can be a good and a bad thing. So the pros and cons of them all being individually wrapped. I like that they're wrapped because then you can just pull one out at a time and keep the others wrapped in plastic until you're ready to use them. The downside is, of course, that excessive plastic is being used, so we do need to think of the environmental impacts here. Okay, we have one small issue, and I think it's actually because of the shape of the canvas. They've had to kind of pull the canvas around, and as you can see, there are a few folds in the canvas. When you have a square or rectangular one, it's much easier to make the canvas fold flat, and then you can paint around the edges. This looks like it's going to be a little more challenging, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. That definitely seems to be the case on the larger one too. So that is just the one downside I can see from doing a shape. I don't even know how you would frame this. Oh my goodness, I haven't thought of the logistics of that, but I do like that they are in a heart shape. I can't really resist that. I'm leaving this one in the plastic, I think, for now, because I'm not going to paint on all of them straight away. Moving on to the next canvases. The next one is a linen canvas that has been pre-gessoed. You can see that that is linen just by the back of it, so I'm quite curious to try this out. I've never painted on a linen canvas. I kind of wish it was just the raw linen in this case, although I know that you probably still have to gesso it anyway, so it's not the end of the world that it has been gessoed. It looks like it's pretty sturdy. I might pull this out of the plastic in a while. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this one straight away. Coming up next are some black canvases. Now these look really intriguing. They are 100% cotton medium grain, colour gesso primed stretched canvases. So I think they might actually be white canvases that have been gessoed, but I think I'll open this packet. There's 4 of them in here, which is pretty cool. Looks like some of them are wrapped inside again. That will be good because then I can keep some wrapped. So I actually quite like that they're wrapped inside each other, so you can use a few at a time. Oh, okay, so I've got a shiny bit there. Alright, let me just pull one of these out. This actually looks like a linen canvas. I mean, they said cotton on there. This one's a little bit looser than the white ones, but it's not bad, and when you push it that way it doesn't move too much. That is very thickly coated in gesso. I mean, that's multiple coats. This is a 6 by 8 inch, which is quite nice as well, so I'll have to think of something to paint on the black ones. And the most intriguing canvases are to come. Have you ever seen a watercolour canvas? Because I certainly haven't. Apparently this is cotton, and I'm going to open one just so we can take a look at the texture of it. They sent me two sizes, which is really nice of them. There were two 8x10s and two 11x14s, so I'll save the big ones for now. I'll just open one of these little guys here. It is definitely a different texture to a regular canvas. It's quite rough. It's very nice. It feels like cotton, and it's nice and taut. As you could see, what I was talking about, that when you have a nice straight edge, you can get a nice flat, even stretch of the canvas upon it. I've never used watercolor canvas before. Until recently, I did not even know that watercolor canvas even existed. So I think I'm going to have to do a painting on this, and we'll see how it works out. Since I've never used a watercolour canvas before, I have no idea how it's going to behave. So what I've done is I've taped it down the middle, and I'm going to wet one side because I'm not too sure if you kind of need to prime the canvas by wetting it a bit and taking a layer off. So I'm going to do one side, and then the other I'm just going to paint straight onto the canvas, and we can see if there's a difference. So I've just got a bit of plain water here, and a sponge, so I'm just going to gently wipe that down, just in case there's a layer of stuff which doesn't let the paint soak in. I think I might actually let it dry. Okay, it's dry, and I've divided it again so that I can paint one side wet on wet, and the other side I'll just put the paint directly onto the canvas dry, just to see if there's a difference between that as well. It's the wet on wet first, since I've got my Watercolor brush here. I've added rather a lot of water, so oops, I might just let that dry off a tiny bit. Alright, so I've just mixed up some colour. This is Helios Purple. Okay, this is the side that I just put water straight on and it did not get time to dry. Oh, it's weird. It just flicked off the edge of the canvas. I'm not used to that. I'm just going to paint down the side of the canvas. And then let's try it on the other side. Oh, got a few bubbles going on here. Alright, and then I'll paint straight onto the canvas dry, and we'll see if there's much difference. Ooh. This is on the side that I kind of primed it by just washing it with the sponge, but I don't know, it doesn't seem to make any difference, does it? And just to give it a little bit of interest, I might flick some different colour on. Okay, I've let that dry. I think I might peel the tape off so we can see it better. Oh, the tape peels off much more easily. Oh, I still managed to stuff it up though. Oh well, so I guess washi tape does not work very well on the canvas. At least this particular one does not. I think maybe a stronger painter's tape would be more useful for the canvas. At least now we know that the washi tape is probably not very good on canvas. Yeah, look at that. Oh well, failed experiment there. But what I'm getting from this is that it doesn't really matter whether or not you prime the canvas first or anything. It looks like it's pretty good to go, and all sides accepted the watercolour paint very well. Just with water, it does make the paints dilute out a bit more than it does if you paint straight onto the canvas, but I'm happy to use any of these techniques. I think that any of them work. I was more just concerned that the canvas wasn't going to work properly or something, I don't know. I was quite skeptical, but I'm pleasantly surprised by this, that it's actually working okay. Now I'm curious to know how well this paint lifts, and I can't remember if I used staining or non-staining colours, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to use a sponge and just see what I can lift off here. So I might well have used a staining colour here. Picked up quite a lot though. I'm also just going to try lifting with a brush. Okay, I think that Prussian blue is staining quite noticeably, as is the pink. It looks like you can get a fair bit of lifting off that with a bit of work, and the canvas seems to be holding up a lot more than watercolour paper will with the same amount of brutality on it. So yeah, that lifts relatively well. Okay, so I actually ran it under the tap and got a cheap brush and just rubbed at it a bit to take off as much paint as I could. That has copped a beating. I have been far rougher with this canvas than I ever am with them, so I just wanted to put it to the test to see how it would hold up. You could see that most of the paint is still on here, so it does hold paint pretty well, and I think what I'm going to do is actually just try and paint over the whole thing. Since there's going to be a lot of markings and things, I'm just going to do kind of an abstract galaxy. I'm going to build up the paint and see how many layers I can get onto this, and we shall see what happens at the end. I cannot bear to throw this canvas out, it's such a waste. Let's get into it. So despite all of my rigorous testing on this canvas, it held up pretty well, and I was able to get some more paint going on it. As you can see, I'm trying really hard to cover up the taped bit, which was the blankest part of the canvas, and then I just started adding in other colours. This is the first main layer, so I just tried to cover as much as possible, but I wasn't too worried if you could see a little bit of the line left. The only problem I found on this canvas, because I'd wet it a few times and rinsed it quite heavily under the tap, is that it was picking up a lot of fluff and I could not get rid of it. You can see quite a lot of dotting on the pink part of the canvas, and that is due to bits of fluff and hair that I don't know where they were coming from. I mean, the area was pretty clean, but it just seemed to be coming out of the atmosphere and sticking all onto this canvas. So I think a lot of it was just because I'd treated it fairly roughly and it had been washed a few times. You could see I let it dry completely, and then I started another layer by wetting it to begin with and then going in with the paints. It's much easier to do a galaxy if you've wet the canvas or paper beforehand and then just let the paints run on. You can see with the background layer though that the paints really do disperse exactly the same as they would with cotton paper, and this is a cotton canvas, so it works pretty much the same, and I found that the whole thing was really good to use. I did not really have any troubles with it at all. So I ended up, I think, using about 3 layers of paint onto it, and then I threw on some white ink to get a bit of a starry effect. I mean, I could have spent longer on it by drawing something in the foreground, but I was running out of time and I figured the canvas had taken enough abuse from me, so I just left it as a plain galaxy. so it's the next day. This is completely dried, and I am pretty impressed with this. The colours turned out really vibrantly. This is 3 layers of paint, plus that really messy underlayer. So I guess 4 layers of paint, and it does have a little bit of fluff, I think it is, stuck in it. And I think that might have been just because I'd washed it a few times and just everything was sticking to the canvas. So as you can see, the paint works pretty well. It works almost the same as it does on cotton paper. It feels different to paper, but it does behave in a similar way, which is good. So what I think I'll do is actually a second painting, because I have another watercolour canvas here in an 8x10, so I'm going to do that as I would a painting in a sketchbook or on watercolour paper. I'm not going to put it through any rigorous testing or anything. I'm just going to do a regular painting, and we can see how it behaves just when you go straight in with the paint. And I'll paint a proper picture rather than more of an abstract galaxy. But at least I was able to rescue this canvas and it didn't go to waste, and I think it's turned out really pretty. Alright, so you can see I'm peeling it out. I did not touch this canvas until I went straight into using it, and I decided I was going to draw straight onto the canvas, which is not something I usually do because it's very difficult to get a drawing right the first time. I'm drawing in an emu and I could not get the head shape correct, but I got it as close as I could, and I also wanted just to test out how an eraser would work on there, which it actually worked perfectly well. And then I just started with a very light background layer. I didn't want the background to be too strong, so it's very neutral, and I actually went in with a very neutral palette for this entire painting, using Sennelier Warm Grey, Warm Sepia, Raw Sienna, and a tiny bit of black around the eyes. So I really just wanted to go in with neutral colours because I know a lot of people love to paint with neutral earth tones. I know I tend towards really bright colours, but I also wanted to see how the paints would work with a far more neutral palette, and this canvas was fantastic. This is straight out of the plastic. I did not touch it with water or anything to begin with. I'm just painting on wet on dry, and it was excellent. So I had a good time with this, although my emu is a bit lopsided and it wasn't quite as good as I wanted it to be, but never mind, you get the idea. You can see how the lower layer, once it's fully dried, has just really dispersed into the canvas, and that's exactly what cotton watercolour paper will do. And then I just basically built a much heavier layer or two on top to get all of the details of the feathers and things like that. I mean, it's not super detailed, but I did try to get in as much as I could, and I did paint this how I would usually paint on regular paper, just so I could see that it does work pretty much the same. Oh yes, and I painted the emu's eyes with a mix of Chinese orange and quinacridone gold. So here we go, a galaxy and a slightly lopsided emu. But artworks aside, I can quite safely say that the watercolour canvases do actually work, and I really like them. I had a lot of fun with these, and they perform quite closely to cotton watercolour paper, which is really nice. There is a slight difference, just more in the surface tension and things like that, but otherwise it was fine, and I was able to get pretty much the same kinds of paintings on these canvases. So if you're looking for a slightly different surface, I would recommend these. I think these were really great, and I would definitely get some more of them. Because these paintings took me a while, and I think this video might be quite long, I'm going to do a second video looking at some of the other canvases, and I might get out maybe some acrylic paints or oil paints. I'll see how I go, but I think for today I'm just going to stick with these two. So stick around, don't forget to subscribe, and my next video will be some more painting on canvases. Thank you to Phoenix for sending me these. It was very generous of you, and I really loved them. Thank you all very much for watching today. I hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you all again really soon in my next video. Have a fantastic day, and I'll swatch you later. Bye!